Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Now, the beauty of being in this chapel, you preempted me. The beauty of being in the chapel is that it's intimate, and if we have, however many people we have, if we were in the sanctuary, it would feel very small, but in here, actually feels pretty good. The acoustics are superb in here, and the only reason we're really having a microphone is just so it can be projected onto the internet. You don't even really need it in here. So what I'm going to ask everybody is, we're going to be in a good space tonight. What I would ask is that you take out your Mishkan Tefillah, which is underneath your chairs, or behind, thank you. Rich, right? And to take a look around and just see where the exits are in case we need to leave quickly. All right? Take a moment to still your cell phones and your Apple Watches, just so we don't get calls. Because if we do get calls, I answer them, and that's also really fun, right? And just, we're going to have an introspective Shabbat evening. Soloist Jessica Tillum, I'm Rabbi Spike Anderson, and if you would take a moment or two or three and really turn to the people around you, especially folks like sitting in the corners and the hinterlands or by themselves, say, hi, how are you, Shabbat Shalom. Let's introduce ourselves. Let's get some names. Let's take a moment, come across the aisle. Good to see you. Good to see you. So 20 short, wonderful years ago, my wife and I, Marita, were married and spent our honeymoon in Belize. And at the time, we were both avid scuba divers, and our time was mostly spent on the honeymoon diving in wrecks and reefs in the Caribbean. It was incredible, with colors and sea life and movement that one can only experience under the water. However, 2 decades later, there's only one dive that I specifically remember. And I think about this dive often, mostly in the context of prayer. One morning, we were convinced by the dive shop it'd be worth our while to take a relatively long boat ride to a particular stop that they claimed was frequented by whale sharks. Now, there are stories that we, and maybe you, have heard about whale sharks. They're docile and curious creatures, and we'd seen videos of people holding on to their dorsal fins and catching a ride under the water. And we wanted to do that. Neither of us had ever seen a whale shark because they're rare, and the prospect of doing so was extremely inviting. So off we go on this boat into the middle of the ocean, far enough away that we couldn't see any land or any sign of other people. At some point in the middle of the ocean, the captain stopped the boat and announced that we were here. Here? We asked, looking around doubtfully. Yes, here, he assured us. This is where others have seen whale sharks. And so we suited up, and into the water we went. We were far enough out to sea that the ocean floor was far too deep for us to reach. So no wrecks, no reefs, just water. Aside from the water and each other, there was literally nothing to see. The whale sharks are attracted to the bubbles from your tank, we were assured. All you do is breathe and wait. So we did. And there we were, 20 meters underwater, Marita and I holding hands, our buoyancy keeping us absolutely still, and we just breathed. And with each breath, these large air bubbles would float towards the surface, translucent and magical. And we waited, and we breathed, and we waited. Now, I wish that I could tell you that we saw a whale shark, that we held on to the dorsal fin and rode through the waves like some sort of a Poseidon. But the fact is, we didn't. No whale shark. In fact, even at the time, I was reasonably sure that the dive shop was leading us on a fool's errand. And we went. And yet, 20 years later, it's that dive that I remember. I remember, and I cherish, the feeling that I had in those moments of being so acutely present, so acutely connected, and so very much in tune with myself, my wife, and the world around me. Perhaps this is like some types of prayer. Yes, a hint of hope to be granted for our petition, but more likely, when done with focus and intention, it brings us into harmony with our innermost self, and we become aware of the breath of the world. Tonight, we're going to take in a few short Jewish stories from tradition, each of which provides us the context for introspection, and none of which patronizes us with easy answers. In that spirit, let's find our feet on the floor. We're going to take in 3 breaths together as we welcome Shabbat. Deep breath in. We let it out. The next breath brings us into this sacred space and time. Deep breath in and out. third breath connects us with Jews bringing in Shabbat all over the world and with all things that breathe. Deep breath in, and we let it out. I invite everyone to rise for our candle blessing, which we'll find on page 120. Elaine and Marilyn, if you'll come on up and you're going to light candles for us, okay? So if you'll pick it up by the actual candle. Okay, there you go. We're going to say it after. There you go. We Jews have been bringing light into a dark world since time began as we know it. On this Shabbat, we bring in the light and the warmth and all that Shabbat love as we get ready for our bracha.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu
Lehadlik ner shel Shabbat. Amen. If you'd like to light your own Shabbat candles right through the doors in the lobby, you'll find candles ready to be lit as we pray Shalom Aleichem on page 142.
Shalom Aleichem Malachei Asharet Malachei Elyon Melech Malachei Amlachim HaKadosh Baruch Boachem L'Shalom Malachei Ashalom Malachei Elyon Melech Malachei Amlachim HaKadosh Baruch Barchuni
L'Shalom Malachei Ashalom Malachei Elyon Melech Malachei Amlachim HaKadosh Baruch Tzeitzem L'Shalom Malachei Ashalom Malachei Elyon Melech Malachei Amlachim HaKadosh Baruch Please be seated. The evening of the first Shabbat began to fall on the world, and Adam and Eve were in hiding. We all know the story. They'd eaten the apple, and for the first time, they realized that they were naked. They were stuck, say our sages, in their shame. Torah tells us that the Ruach Elohim, the Spirit of God, entered the garden. Hearing it, Adam and Eve attempted to hide. Echa, God asked them, where are you? Why was God asking this question? Didn't God know where they physically were? The sages assure us, of course God did. God knows, well, everything. That's part of our theology. But God's question, Echa, where are you, wasn't about Adam and Eve's physical whereabouts, but rather God's question was posed for Adam and Eve so that it resounded existentially in their soul. Where are you, Eicha, on your spiritual journey? As if to say, you can't exist in the past or wallow in what was. If we stay there, we're only hiding from being present to our actual life. If we stay in the past, we would obscure our connection to the sacredness of the world around us. Hiding from self closes us off to the possibility, when in fact our most natural state is to be curious and joyous and open. God's question to people, Eicha, invites us to pause. Eicha, where are you? Encourages us to be honest with ourselves. And it permits us to move ourselves out of hiding so that we can move forward. It's an alarm. Lechado D can be found on page 138. I got the call. Page 138, Lechado D.
Lechado di likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat nekabela. 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 Shamor v'zachor b'dibur echad, Emanu-El hamyuchad, Adonai echad u'shemo echad, l'shemo tiferet v'litzchila.
Here we go.
Lechado di likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat nekabela. Lechado di likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat nekabela.
Verse 5.
Likrat Shabbat lechu v'nilcha, ki hu b'kor habracha, merosh mekidem nesucha, sof ma'aseh v'maseh v'tchila.
Here we go.
Lechado di likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat nekabela. Lechado di likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat nekabela.
Hitoreri, hitoreri, kiva orek umiori, uri ori shidaberi, kivod Adonai nichila. Lechado di likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat nekabela. Lechado di likrat kala,
b'nei Shabbat nekabela.
We rise and face the opening door.
Boi v'shalom ateret bala, gam b'simcha u'tzochola, toch emunei am segula.
Michala, Lechado di likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat nekabela. Lechado di likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat nekabela. Page 147, we pray together in the English. There is one who sings the song of his own life, finding everything within himself. There is one who leaves the circle of herself and sings the song of her people. There is one whose voice rings with a song of humanity, hoping for the highest perfection. And there is one who rises even higher, uniting with all creatures, with all worlds, filling the universe with song. Nivarech, let us bless. Baruch Hu, page 146. Baruch Hu et Adonai HaMevorach. Baruch Adonai HaMevorach, HaMevorach le'olam va'ed. HaMevorach, HaMevorach le'olam va'ed. As evening comes on, we'll find Roll in the Dark on your back inside cover. Too dark, roll into light. Night becomes day, day turns to night. Roll into dark, roll into light. Night becomes day, day turns to night. Orei or v'layla, orei or mipnei choshev, orei or mipnei choshev, v'choshech mipnei or. Roll into dark, roll into light. Night becomes day, day turns to night. Roll into dark, roll into light. Night becomes day, day turns to night. Shema, page 152. Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shen Kevod Moto Le'olam Va'ed. We can be seated. From Parsha of Lech Lecha, you find part of the Jewish origin story and connections to our collective and individual meaning of life. They say that we each are just in a culmination of our experiences, of what's happened to us. Lech Lecha is the story of Abraham and Sarah, who are in Haran, modern-day Syria, and everything is fine. They're existing. They're going through the motions. They're living their life. Everything is safe enough, good enough. They're earning a living. Until one day, They get the call from God. Lech lecha, lechi lach. Take yourself forward from this place towards the land that I will show you. And then later God says, as your partner, you'll be my partner, and together we will change the world. Take the world from where it is, a place of darkness, a place of brokenness, a place of injustice, and bring the world towards where it ought to be, a place of wholeness, health, and healing. Now, Lech Lecha is an interesting grammatical structure. It's an imperative. There's an explanation point after it. It's an imperative. Take yourself forward, but it's also reflexive. So at the same time, it's take yourself forward as you take yourself inward. Take yourself forward as you take yourself inward. To do what? To tikkun olam. To change and fix and heal a broken world. This is the Jewish grand mission. This is, according to our sages and the hundreds of Jewish generations that have believed this, this is our reason for being, to be in partnership with God to help fix a broken world. Every Jewish generation is supposed to do their part to move that proverbial needle. And every single Jew, every single one of us is supposed to do our part to help in this grand project. Take yourself forward, take yourself inward with a purpose. This has become part of our reason for being as Jews, the reason that each Jewish generation is supposed to be here, and part of our individual quest and search for meaning of life. Page 154, you'll find our V'ahavta prayer, second part of the Shema, which helps remind us that we do have a best quintessential religious self.
ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך, והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם, בשבתך בביתך ולכתך בדרך ושכבך ובקומך, ושרתם להיות על ידך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אדוני לכם אמת. If you turn to page 159, we join together praying in the English. Sing the song of men and women joined in understanding and respect, the song of God's miracles, an earth protected and cherished, a gift for our children and the generations to come, the song of a land once ravished by war, now quiet and content, her soldiers home to leave no more, the song of a world redeemed, the song of peace. Mikamoka, page 158. מי כמוך בלימוד
When we look at sacred Jewish literature, the text, the prime text, is what we call Torah, and in its most defined form, that's Genesis through Deuteronomy, those 5 books. The next sort of copse of Jewish sacred literature is referred to as Tanakh, and that's an acronym. The T is for Torah, the N is for Nevi'im, the prophets, and the Ch, or K, is for Ketuvim, which is writings, which is like the kitchen sink of everything else that we call sacred, right? So you've got the book of Job in there, and you've got Esther and Psalms. One of the books that's in there is called Kings. There's actually 2 books of Kings. There's Kings 1 and Kings 2. Very original, Kings 1 and Kings 2. So there's a particular story from Kings 1, which is about Elijah the prophet. All right, we're familiar with Elijah, right? Elijah is the one who we always invite over to Passover Seder and never shows up, all right? He's the one we put a chair for at every bris, the Kisei Eliyahu, right? And in many sections of Jewish liturgical and lifestyle events, there is a nod to Elijah, because Elijah is one of 2 characters in Torah who stops living but doesn't die. He's like in this in-between state, okay? He gets brought up to heaven incarnate, okay? And so acts as sort of a bridge or a go-between between us and God and this time and the time to come. Now, for 10 points, who's the other one? I said there's 2. Elijah's 1. Who's the other one? Anybody know? 10 points. Enoch. A guy named Enoch. All right, you'll get it next time. All right? So Elijah is so prominent in so many of our stories because he's supposed to be a harbinger for the Messiah, right? And that's why we have these chairs for, Elijah, both at the Passover Seder and at the bris, and there's, the cup, right? Because if we leave a place for the Messiah, for the world to come, and the one who will bring it, Elijah might come and the Messiah is not too far after. So that's all a long way of saying in 1 Kings, there's a couple really interesting stories about Elijah. Okay? Elijah the prophet, his main job was to speak truth to power. That's what the prophets do. And the prophetesses, there are either 6 or 8, I always confuse it. Prophetesses speak truth to power. That's their role. So power at the time was King Ahab and Queen Jezebel. They have a terrible reputation. There's all sorts of literature coming out now that they actually might not have been as bad as we think. Okay? But Elijah spoke truth to power. He called them to the mat on some things that they were doing. They threatened his life. He had to run. Deep into the wilderness, he ran. And after weeks and months of being out there all by himself, he began to despair. Take my soul, Elijah begs God. For Elijah was ready to give up on life. So God placed Elijah in the cleft of a mountain, for God's presence was going to be passing through. Kings 1 relays to us, behold, God was passing, and a great powerful wind, smashing mountains and breaking rocks, went before God. But God was not in the wind. After the wind came an earthquake, but God was not in the earthquake. After the earthquake came a great fire, but God was not in the fire. After the fire came the sound of a silent voice. The sound of a silent voice. And the voice spoke to him and said, Elijah, why are you here? Again, our rabbis assure us God's question could not have been about the physical, but rather it challenged Elijah with the existential. In the silence that followed the calamity and the destruction of the environment around him and his life, could Elijah once again reach deep inside him, reach deep inside himself, and grasp for himself his sense of purpose? Elijah, why are you here? Why are you here? Vishamru, page 152.
Vishamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat lasot et ha-Shabbat ledoratam berit olam.
162.
Vishamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat lasot et ha-Shabbat ledoratam berit olam. Beini uvein b'nei Yisrael oti leolam, oti leolam, oti leolam.
Olam Vishamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat lasot et ha-Shabbat ledoratam berit olam.
Ki sheshet yamim asa Adonai et hashemayim b'yet haaretz.
Vishamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat lasot et ha-Shabbat ledoratam berit olam.
Uvayom hashvi Shabbat vaynafash, Shabbat vaynafash, Shabbat vaynafash. Vishamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat lasot et ha-Shabbat ledoratam berit olam.
In the late Middle Ages, there was a young man who went to a yeshiva in Worms and emerged out years later with his smicha, his rabbinic degree. This young man, this rabbi, went on to acquire the moniker of the Chefetz Chaim and became one of the great rabbis of not just that generation, but the age. Not just a sage, but a tzaddik. And some say one of the Lamed Vavneks, one of the 36 individuals who are walking around us on whose merit the world exists. But he didn't start that way. He started as a regular person who was trying. There's lots of stories about the Chefetz Chaim, pretty famous ones. The one about the feathers in the wind relating to gossip, that's him. There's lots of them. But one of the stories that I really, really like about the Chefetz Chaim isn't about some wisdom that he gave out, but a realization that he had about himself. And the story goes something like this. He graduates from his seminary and decides that he's going to take this task, this challenge of Tikkun Olam very, very seriously. So he returns to his hometown, and from the center steps of the central market square, he starts preaching and sermonizing. And he realizes pretty quickly that as people are just walking by him, nobody's listening. Well, maybe the city, the town is too big for me to start with. I'm going to start with my neighborhood. And begins to preach and sermonize, but nobody listens to him. You see where this is going. He goes from his neighborhood to his street. Nobody listens to him. He says, maybe the street's too big, I'll start with my home. Nobody is listening to him. And finally he realizes that before he can do tikkun olam, he has to start with tikkun hanefesh, okay? Fixing himself. If he can fix himself and start with himself, then, like a pebble into a still pond with ripples that emerge from it, then the ripples can happen. But he has to start with himself. Meaning of life, tikkun hanefesh, tikkun olam. Inward fixing at the same time as we attempt to fix and change and heal a broken world. We rise for our Amidah, page 164, praying that the intentions in our mind, the intentions of our heart, turn into words and thoughts and deeds. Page 164.
Adonai sifatai tiftachu fi agita hilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu v'Elohei Avotenu v'Imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, v'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, v'Elohei Leah. Ha'el Hagadol Hagibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim v'Konei Hakol, v'Zocher Chasdei Avot v'Imahot, U'Mevi Gula Livnei V'neihem, Leman Shemo B'Ahava, Melech Ozer U'Moshiach U'Magen, Baruch atah Adonai, Magen Avraham ve'Ezrat Sarah. Atah Gibor le'olam Adonai, Mechayeh hakol atah Rab lehoshia, Morid hatal, Mechakel chaim bechesed, Mechayeh hakol berachamim rabim, Somech noflim ve'rofeh cholim, Umatir asurim, Umekayem emunato lishenei afar, Michamocha ba'al gevurot, Umidom elach, Melech meimit umechayeh, Umatzmiach Yeshua, V'ne'eman atah lechayot hakol, Baruch atah Adonai, Mechayeh hakol. Atah kadosh v'shimcha kadosh, u'kdoshim b'chol yom yahalucha selah. Baruch atah Adonai, ha'el hakadosh.
We continue with the Amidah silently, either with the words of your prayer book or the words of your heart. When you are finished, please have a seat. Oftentimes the Hasidic tales that are shared are profound in their simplicity. The last story I'll share with you tonight is a Hasidic tale that I've seen in lots of other cultural writings. So we claim it, but lots of others do as well. And it goes something like this, that there was a poor farmer who one night had a dream that in a faraway land that he could almost identify, underneath the setting of a bridge was buried treasure. He woke up and told his wife this tale, and night after night he had the same dream again and again and again, until finally he felt compelled to go and search for this land and search for this bridge to find the buried treasure. And the tale says off he goes over mountain and range and hill and dale until eventually he got to the land that he recognized from his dream. Before long, he saw the bridge that he recognized from his sleep. And there at the foot was a shovel just waiting for him. And so he starts to dig and dig and dig until he can't dig anymore. Eventually, a soldier comes up to him and says, "What are you doing? Why are you digging under the bridge?" So the poor farmer tells about the tale that he heard, not that he heard, that he dreamt about the treasure in the faraway land, to which the soldier replies to him, "Dreams are just dreams. I dreamt of a poor farmer whose treasure was buried underneath the hearth of his home." It's okay. Just turn off. And so towards home he returns, eventually getting to his own house, and sure enough, begins to dig underneath his fireplace and finds that buried treasure that he dreamt about. Simple and profound, these Hasidic stories. Sometimes it does take a journey, both outward and inward, to realize that what we spiritually seek was always within reach, within our home, heated at our hearth. Part of being amongst a sacred community is sharing. The tradition at Temple Emanu-El, which I just love, is that at this point in the service, we, most of the time, will offer up an opportunity for anybody to stand up and say your name and share a simcha, something happening in your life, something good, something that just happened, is happening, is about to happen. I'll give you a for instance. I'll start us off. So my name's Spike Anderson, and the stars are aligned, and my daughter Lulu and I have some solo time for like 3 days before the rest of the family comes back. So I really appreciate our solo time together. It is really wonderful, and for that blessing, I'm thankful. Yeah. Anybody want to share something happening in your life? Go ahead. Hey, Margie, happy birthday. Happy birthday, Margie. Okay. Others? Yep.
Bruce Lindemann and our firstborn daughter, Carla, is going to be born tomorrow.
Wow, Mazel tov.
We're not that old.
No. No. Others, simchas. They can be big, they can be small. Yeah?
I'm Dana Nectar, co-president to the amazing Bill Keller over there. And I won't say any names, but I have heard great news as far as the IRA definition of anti-Semitism in a bill that, should it get passed, will get signed by him.
Oh, okay. That's very interesting. Tell us your name. You got a good part in the play? That's good. I'm sure you're gonna knock it out of the park. So as we get ready to say Shehachianu, which is what we Jews do when we know we're experiencing a certain type of time, right? A certain type of sacredness where we want this type of time again and again and again. We pray Shehachianu on page 648, and as we do, just articulate for yourself something that you're grateful for that's going on right now in your life.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shehechianu v'kimanu v'higianu lazman hazeh.
You'll find our Misha Berach prayer on page 371. This is the prayer that we say in our community for people in need of a healing of mind, of body, of soul, of relationship. The congregation is looking for a refuah shlema, a full recovery and healing for Rob Gilbert, Brenda Grazier, Chaim ben Sarah, Meir ben Rachmael and Dina, Alvin Levy, Koska Miskoji, Harvey Apple, Dana Weber, Audrey Winograd, Ken Schiffer, Karnina Michal bat Yitzchak Vatova, Jennifer Herman, Neil Schwartz, bat Abigail Pesach, Jordan Miller Mandel, Jeff Crispo, Mark Laudinger, Ashley Burfield, and Jerome Weinstein. If you have someone in your life, and it could be you, in need of a refuah shlema, in need of a Misha Berach, a healing, please say their name either out loud or in your hearts when my eyes meet yours. Thank you. Thanks. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, the Minhag HaMakom, the tradition of this place is that we rise, and if you're comfortable putting your arms around the people next to you, please do so. If you are by yourself, feel my arms around you, or scoot into the people next to you, please. Misha Berach.
Bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen.
Shlema. We remain standing for Kiddush on page 123. If you are under 14 and have not yet been bar or bat mitzvahed, come on up to the front. Go ahead. There we go. Okay, and Bill, will you pass out the rest of these guys? Folks who are online, if you have a Kiddush cup, if you'll rise and hold up your Kiddush cup, we sanctify the day, we sanctify this sacred community, and sanctify who we are through one another.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu, v'shabbat kodsho b'ahava uvratzon hinkilanu, zikaron l'maaseh v'reishit, ki hu yom tehila l'mikorei kodesh, zecher l'tziat mitzrayim, ki vanu v'acharta, v'otanu kidashta, mikol hamim, v'shabbat kodshecha, v'ahava uvratzon hinchaltanu. Baruch atah Adonai mekadesh haShabbat. Amen. L'chaim. L'chaim l'bracha, to life and blessings. Okay, girls, if you'll come on up and you're going to open the ark right behind us. Folks, Elenu is on page 586. Aleinu l'shabeach l'adon hakol,
Latet gidula yotzer breshit, shelo asanu koye haratzot, velo samanu kumishpachot adama, shelo sam chelkenu kahem, vegor aleinu kechol hamonam, ve'anachnu korim, Uvistachavim umodim, lifnei melech, hachei hamachim, hakadosh baruch hu, v'nemar, v'haya Adonai, lemelech ol kol haaretz, bayom hahu, yeh Adonai echad, u'shemo echad. We'll close the ark. And please be seated. We are almost through because we're getting ready for Mourner's Kaddish, which you'll find on page 598. We say Mourner's Kaddish as part of the service and towards the end of the service because by saying someone who we loved and has passed, by saying their name at a particular point in time, we infuse ourselves with sacred memory. And according to the tradition, they themselves have an aliyat nefesh, an ascent of soul. And of course, the two aren't mutually exclusive. They can both happen. The congregation recognizes in Shloshim the family of Maxine Rosen. The ark sites for the Shabbat for Barbara Berwick, Edith Cohen, Pauline Davis, Doris Edelman, Naomi Feinberg, Frank Feldman, Gil Fruchter, Jack Futterman, Alan Gilman, Evelyn Greenstein, Norman Grosser, Roland Hertz, Roberta Hershew, Sigmund Horowitz, Murray Clantfer, Ann Klein, Albert Kuttner, Ray Lewin, Arkady Marcus,
Bernard Marmer, Louis Mazer, Lorraine Myers, Judy Miller, Marcia Miller, Gloria Paul, Lenora Raymar, Gussie Showolf, Julius Simon, Dolores Lindemann Stoner, Ruth Weinstein, Evelyn Wertheim, Harold Weiss. If you are in the Shloshim period of mourning, the first 30 days after a loved one's passing, we ask you to rise and be recognized. If you're in the first year after a loved one's passing, we ask you to be recognized. If you are commemorating the yard site, the death anniversary of a loved one's passing, the Shabbat, we ask you to be recognized. Stand up and be recognized. And if it is your custom to rise in solidarity, or for the 6 million who have no one to say Kaddish for them, we ask that you do so now. I'm going to ask you to take a moment, and if you like, you can close your eyes and picture the person whom you are standing for. Picture them at their best. Picture them healthy and hale and strong, right next to you. Picture your gaze turning towards theirs, their eyes turning towards you, and your gazes meet. Your eyes lock, and together, with warmth and love, you slowly begin to smile. If your eyes are closed, you can flutter them open. Mourner's Kaddish can be found on page 598. Yit Gadal v'yit Kadash me Rabbah be'alma divrach hirotei v'yamlich malchutei b'chayechon v'yomechon u'b'chayedecho beit Yisrael Bagalav Yizman Kari Vimru Amen. Ehe Shema Rabba Mevarach Leolam Olmei Almaya. Yiparach V'yishtabach V'yipa'ar V'yitraman V'yitnaseh. V'yitadar V'yitale V'yitalal Shmei Dekusha Barichu. Le'ela Min Kol Berchata V'shirata. Hush Becharta V'nechamah. Damiram B'yalma Vimru Amen. Ehe Shlama Rabba Min Shemaya, V'chaim Aleinu V'al Kol Yisrael, V'imru, Amen. Hosei Shalom V'imru Mav, Hu Ya'aseh Shalom, Aleinu V'al Kol Yisrael, V'imru, Amen. Hosei Shalom V'imru Mav, Hu Ya'aseh Shalom, Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'meru Amen. Oseh shalom b'imromav u'yaseh shalom Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'yimeru Amen. Oseh shalom b'imromav u'yaseh shalom Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'yimeru Amen. Oseh shalom b'imromav u'yaseh shalom Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'yimeru Amen. Okay, hand on the shoulder in front of you or to the side, reach across the aisle like the good Republicans and Democrats that you are. Somebody put your hand on me. Come on, here we go. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu Eloheinu melech olam, hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Amen. Shabbat shalom, everybody.
Sorry, I lost battery.